And over the next 30 minutes, we're going to show you how you can leverage Point in Time's MeetingMapper and Drawloop Technologies Loop document services for Salesforce to easily collect meaningful data and automatically generate documents you use every day. And a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions during the webinar, just use your GoToWebinar panel, type in the questions, and we'll get those answered either during the course of the webinar or via email afterwards. We will be recording the session, and there will be a few poll questions throughout the webinar. So just click on the answer you choose and then the submit button so we can see what everybody's thinking. Okay. So over the past several years, we worked with our customers, and we've compiled this list of challenges every organization seems to have at one time or another, with Salesforce. Number one is poor usage and adoption rates of Salesforce. This is always a challenge for, seems like any organization. Spend a bunch of money getting Salesforce running, and then the challenge is getting people to actually populate it with meaningful data. Valuable KPIs for account teams, they're not being collected. Again, this is about getting meaningful data into the system that can be used to drive business. There's a lack of reliable and relevant data and information regarding your accounts and opportunities in Salesforce. Again, are you just using your Salesforce as a contacts database, or are you leveraging the data that can go into the system? There's no easy or repeatable process to manage sales meetings across your account teams. You want consistency in the scheduling, preparation, the conducting, and the follow-up of these meetings. It's impossible to ascertain what messages are resonating with customers in sales meetings. So you have all these customer meetings. There's great information that comes from them, but this information is rarely collected, stored, let alone analyzed and used. Now, your teams are not practicing the stated sales methodology. Your CRM should at least encourage this behavior, but it doesn't seem like that happens very often. And lastly, but probably more important, is revenue forecasts are not as meaningful and accurate as they could be if they were actually based on the information collected in those sales meetings that drive that revenue. So I've been in the software industry for over 30 years now, and some of the best fiction I've ever read has been in the form of sales forecasts. So we're going to talk about ways that you can conquer some of these challenges using MeetingMapper and Loop document services. Okay, so the first polling question is coming up here. Let's see what you all think on this. So just click your answer and click the submit button, and we'll tally these up. Okay. Okay, so we've got yeah, this is kind of the answers we expected. So I mean, it's hard to do a forecast without talking to your reps, even though in theory that data should be reside in Salesforce. So let's take a look at MeetingMapper first. Okay, so MeetingMapper is a fully native Salesforce app. So all the data it collects resides in your Salesforce org. It takes about 5 minutes to install and requires no upfront Salesforce configuration. So this is kind of the way it works. I'm just going to give you the highlights of the application. So you'll schedule a meeting with your customer, or maybe it's an internal meeting, or whatever meeting that you want to schedule, and then you'll go ahead and schedule the meeting and create the meeting in Salesforce within MeetingMapper. So this meeting will be linked to a standard Salesforce object like accounts or opportunity, and then everything that goes in the MeetingMapper automatically updates the appropriate fields and objects in Salesforce. That's over 75 structured data points in every meeting. So here's the primary interface you're seeing in this screenshot. You'll see down to the left.
Mike, we're not seeing the slide. We're still on the poll question.
My bad.
There you go.
Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the MeetingMapper, and again, this is the primary interface with MeetingMapper in this screenshot. So you'll see the cloud there, the table. In this case, it's cloud, and it represents a conference call. But it can be changed to a physical table, a circle, oval, rectangle, whatever, to better represent the meeting that you're attending. Around the table, you'll see meeting attendees. You can click on these icons to gather information for each attendee. So information like their roles, are they a decision maker, economic buyer, influencer, or whatever role that you'd like to assign that individual. You can also collect information like their stance. Are they for this deal? Are they against this? Are they undecided? Something that'll help you better gauge where you stand in this opportunity. On the right side of the display, you'll see the meeting logistics like goals and objectives, time, and the usual stuff. At the top, you'll see the navigation bar. Now, this is configurable based on meeting templates that allow you to specify the type of meeting. It could be like a cold call or a requirements gathering session. Each organization will create their own templates to fit their own needs. Okay, so let's look at the navigation bar highlights. Notes, you'll see the notes button. You can take public notes. And these are notes you would share with your customer to document the meeting. You can also take private notes, and this is something you'd share with your boss or your colleagues in the account team. Actionable Intelligence. Now, this is configurable point-and-click note-taking, and we'll talk more about this in a subsequent slide. Export report. This produces a public and a private PDF that are formatted and then can be sent to the internal account team and or the customer. Completely documents the meeting you just attended. Political map. This allows you to dynamically build political diagrams of customers' organization, which are then stored in the standard Salesforce object. And then this last one, this related object setting, this allows you to update any field in the linked Salesforce object, so everything related to the object can be updated from one interface within MeetingMapper. Okay, so that's the basic interface that allows you to consistently collect the meaningful data that you need to drive your opportunities. Okay, next poll question. Okay, so also expected responses to this, but we want to show you a way that's really easy, like I used the term, clickable note-taking. So with Actionable Intelligence, again, it's configurable so that you can basically change the tabs to whatever, fits well with your methodology. You can also change all the labels for the fields in each of those tabs. And again, you can call it whatever you want. But the key point here is that this information that you see and collect within MeetingMapper is the kind of thing that you would use to generate and analyze an accurate forecast. I mean, does this project have budget? Are there any open issues? Who are your competitors? What are the customer's pain points? What are your strengths and weaknesses relative to this deal? And are there any customer objections? Now, this information coupled with the information you gather in the meetings, that's, like the players, their roles and stances, That makes for meaningful and accurate forecasts. So all the data that's collected by MeetingMapper is automatically stored in the appropriate place in Salesforce. So whether it's in the account object, opportunity object, contacts, and so on, it's all stored there. It's secure, just like your Salesforce instance is secure. And you can then, with all this data, and most of it, 95% plus, is structured data, so you can report on it and analyze it to your heart's content. Okay, now you have all this meaningful data and actionable intelligence collected via MeetingMapper. Now I'm going to hand it off to Kirk so he can show you how you can easily leverage this data with Drawloop document services. Kirk?
Great, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. We got another polling question for you. So if you are using document generation today in Salesforce, are you using it for customer-facing docs, internal business reviews, customer consumption docs, all the above? Not sure? Go ahead and take a moment, if you would, and answer the question to the best of your ability, and we'll be able to move forward. Okay, not sure. Interesting. So let's talk about why data is not trusted in Salesforce. There's a couple of reasons. So I've been a sales leader for quite some time. I've been an individual contributor. I will tell you that my first exposure to document generation is when I joined Drawloop in May of last year, and I've been doing this for 25 years. So what's interesting about data integrity and trusting data as a sales leader to be able to forecast properly and so on is based on the information being populated. So whether you're using MeetingMapper to populate who are your coaches, where's your strengths, where's your weaknesses in a particular engagement, you also want to make sure that all the information is populated into Salesforce, so when you click a button to generate a customer-facing document, all the information populates, because it's just like an old mail merge mentality, where the data that resides in Salesforce will be grabbed by text tags and pulled into a document and then delivered any way you want, either through an SMTP server, or it could be done through encryption, it could be done through e-sign, and we'll get into that in just a second. The key to that whole piece is making sure that that data is in Salesforce in the appropriate objects to pull over. So what we're showing you here is that Drawloop interacts with any environment within Salesforce. We are an OEM partner of Salesforce. We're on the Force.com platform, so we're just another custom object. So imagine if you're in Sales Cloud or Service Cloud or any of the communities, you can utilize Drawloop to generate documents automatically, either with a button click or based on business logic or workflow. You can also see that you can pull outside data through our API and drop it in a new document as well. The key thing is you're going to get 3 questions asked when you click the button to generate a document. Who do you want to send it to? What do you want to send? And how do you want to send it? And to the right side of the slide, you see that we can go through encryption, because a lot of our customers require encryption based on security. And so we have a partnership with CipherCloud and an integration. You can send the customer-facing document via any SMTP service. We are integrated with all, or the top 4 anyway. You see 3 here: DocuSign, EchoSign, and Certify. We also have an integration now with Barracuda Sign Now. And then from a storage standpoint, you can either use Salesforce's storage internally, or you can use a third-party service, or you can send it to an FTP site and then grab it and drop it behind your firewall. Okay, next slide. So what this is a screenshot of just the opportunity object in Salesforce. You notice the click to generate document button is there. That is something when you download our app from AppExchange, you will be able to build a button that can then jump into any object, because you can launch a document from anywhere you need to. Go to the next slide, please. And when you click that button, this is the next user interface screen. It'll ask you who you want to send it to, what document you want to send, and how do you want to send it. What's important here is by using customer-facing documents, that information is going to come from the objects in Salesforce. So now, whether you're grabbing from the line items, you're grabbing from a quoting object, you're using the CPQ to configure price and quote, all of that data is going to reside in Salesforce. So therefore, you can now use Drawloop to do a visualization of data for internal business reviews. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So let's do another quick polling question. So quarterly business reviews are typically, it could be monthly, it could be weekly, but a lot of times we as salespeople have to present to executive management or sales leadership. I will tell you that it used to take me 3 days prior to coming to Drawloop to generate a quarterly business review. Number one, we didn't trust the data in Salesforce, so therefore I had to go to different resources to get that information. But if the information is in Salesforce and you're using Drawloop, it's going to be much quicker, and I'll show you how. Please answer the question. Okay. At least an hour. Actually, that's not bad, because I will tell you that with Drawloop, with the information now residing in Salesforce, we are the only the only document generation company working in the Salesforce ecosystem that uses Excel as middleware. And what does that mean? Well, you're going to be able to do calculations that you can't do in Salesforce today. So this is an example of a QBR that we have in our demo sandbox. This is a summary of the previous quarter, a percentage of quota, what was the average deal size, how many deals did you do, what was the total revenue. Go to the next slide, please. You can also break it down by SKUs or line items in your opportunity with the different product sets that you have. And you can do graphical representation. This was just an output from an Excel spreadsheet that we put together and dropped it into this PowerPoint. Go to the next one. And then, of course, the summary of the current quarter. This is where the magic happens, because you are now going to be able to, if you're using the forecasting object, which you can commit, put an opportunity and commit into pipeline or omit, and be able to drive that number. So it's going to take the calculation of closed one to date in that current quarter, add the accounts that the rep is going to commit for the quarter, and come up with that total number. It's also going to give you the percentages of quota for the quarter, your percentage of sales year to date. Quite frankly, that's probably one of the hardest ones to come up with, because everybody comes up with a different math equation to come up with that. But the way Excel works and the way we build it out is when you generate your quarterly business review, it's going to tell you what day in the year you're at. So take the percentage of the year gone. It's then going to go look at your quota, take that percentage of your quota, and then it's going to take all your closed ones and do the math, and that's where that equation comes from. Okay, next slide. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it back to Mike and team and open the floor up for questions. Mike or Travis, did you guys want to open it up for questions, or do we have everyone muted? All right, for those of you out there in the webinar, if you have any questions, you can type it into the chat, and we'll go ahead and answer it that way. So feel free to type in if you have any questions. You see in front of us now we have all of our contact information. You will be able to access our apps on AppExchange. You have sales at pointintime.com. You've got Mike's contact information. You've got my contact information. So feel free to contact us if you have any other questions, or if you want to communicate with us in the webinar, feel free to type it into the chat. Okay, Mike and Travis, looks like we don't have any questions. So I guess we're ready to wrap this up.